Welcome to the afternoon show. And this is your first time here in this capacity.
Yeah,
And it's good. Good. Thank you for being confident enough to do it. It's great. So,
my name is Sarah Whiting, Uttara Zoma here. This is my first time in a dialogue with you that we may share with other people.
yes, good.
And one thing that I would like to share with people that I've found here is an extraordinary love and joy and a bright heart feeling, which I've been able to bring back into my life and has permeated certain things and still has plenty of room to grow. So thank you, Bapu.
Oh, thank you, Uttara. It's a great honor to be in your service. So, you have any other more specific questions to your practice?
Well, we were speaking earlier about courage and power and responsibility for taking responsibility in charge of your life fearlessly, and not being afraid to be open. And it's not just a question, but it's something I'd like to hear.
Well, we need to be responsible for being true. And that sometimes there's a big question as to who's being true, when is one being true. Yeah. And does being true mean being real? See? Does it mean being compassionate and being true? See, so this is, I think, a good question for people. When are you being you, see, for real? And we don't usually refer to just your neuroses or neurotic self, but a deeper, see, the practitioner self in everybody, see. The one who knows better than just being crazy, the one who feels a deeper side, maybe access to compassion, big-heartedness, and we need people who are open to what that is for real, see, in truth. See. And sometimes it's a very long journey of losses and gains to get to that point where you are now at a plateau where you're ready for deeper practice, not just informational exposure, not just experiential, let's say, experimentation, but really feeling something pulling from within, not self. This is something distinctly different from just a self. You feel maybe something growing, see, as well as giving you access to knowing more about yourself, which is, let's say, a lifelong process. See? Are we growing to know? Are we knowing to be? And are we being to liberate, which are important, say, discoveries along the way. We need to be to liberate. That means check our programs that inhibit, are self-inhibiting, our programs of, let's say, reverting to confusion and not having the confidence to really feel we are correct in what we're doing or where we are going. And confidence in the fact that the path is laid out, all you need to do is walk it, right? Straightforward. Talk it, straightforward. Be it, straightforward. and encourage others to be straightforward with you who are being straightforward. Thank you. We have glimpses, moments where there's no ground, there's nothing. But there's a definite sense of space. I don't mean outer space, inner space, like it's clear. It's clear. And what was troubling you a moment before is just gone. And you wonder what happened. Is there something wrong or is there something right about it? Is there anything to say about that? That you feel this absence of neuroses? So, that is a recovery of a sense of reality. So, perhaps even a deeper reality where you have these spontaneous moments of clearness. So, and you may not even be perceiving it as anything important because it's so much a part of your ordinary consciousness. So we may not sit with it in a certain way because we're having that, let's say, pause, rest point, and then we're already anticipating all the rest of the business of our life to come up. The karma, the sequences, the various responsibilities. Now all of these are, let's say, layers on the inner, the deeper consciousness. And so the idea, of course, is to understand that liberation means being free of that while you're experiencing that. See? And accessing the clear at the same time that you're experiencing what seemed to disconnect you from the clear, because you had to be preoccupied with some form of life business or other. But there's a continuum. It doesn't slow down because of it's not disappearing because of karma. See, the appearance of karmic change, it doesn't disappear. It's present. It witnesses that. See, it's always present. So we're talking about the always present, the all-knowing, always present. See, what? See, deeper. Right. Some call the nothingness. That means no obstruction to what needs to be done. And we are made of that light, but we don't practice being aware of, or we don't ordinarily practice being a participant in that to the degree where at work we're having fun, where we might be ordinarily suffering what it is. Not that there's anything wrong with suffering it, that's part of it too, but you can enjoy it. When you start to experience a little bit of a detachment from it, right? And entering more the objective intelligence. See? And saying, well, I had the same day today I had yesterday. See? But there's a little bit more enjoyment today. Don't know why exactly, but it feels good. See? And we're talking about resonance. See? Karmic resonance. That is to say, the resonance is coming up because of the karma, but it's not defined by or determined by the karma. So, in other words, even the karma is like working towards giving you freedom, right? Because the karma is a manifestation of your inner, and then your desire for liberation, which is obvious, is a manifestation of the inner. And so it's already working on your karma to make it more enjoyable, actually. All right. Then you go walk into work and you're already feeling better because you're able to feel better. It's not because of anybody doing anything. Because you're in touch with your true nature then. That's a deeper level of reality that is closer to, let's say, your core, and in no way obstructing what else has to go on, which is part of the core and then part of the field. They work together. See? And so over time you start to see you are self-liberating and you're making more, let's say, sense of the idea of liberation as not altogether detachment from people or the things you need to do. Liberation is a state of consciousness of being able and free to do what you have to do. There's liberation in that. no matter how stressful or painful it is, there's liberation in that being okay with your stresses, see, your pressures, see, your time games, see, and work, if we call it work, which is then becoming more play. Because you're starting to feel more light coming from within you. See? And that means allowing things to be as they are. And being okay with that. Or being as things might be called as it is. See? Are the as it is. People are the as it is as well. And if you start to, let's say, sense it and then recognize it as such, that could be a better way of getting through your time-space, let's say, experience. See? Everything is as it is. The dark, the painful, the crazy, the ugly, the good, the sweet, the beautiful. You're witnessing it more now. You're not involved in it to the point where you're trying to, let's say, identify with what's showing up as a person. See? Just is showing up. See? It's like a movie that's playing. You have to have a sense of knowing it's a movie playing. And the mind is also a movie playing. And there's a time to be in resonance with the mind so that you're functioning, see, as an intelligence relative to the work demands that are put upon you. You need to be able to do that. So you're able to bring your mind to that, see, process of figuring it out and being there, mindful of what it is when you're driving, taking care of children, or taking care of business. We're still in a mode of liberation, seeing, but we still have things to do. So you're in the world, but not exactly suffering it, which is the key here. See? Yeah, so you've heard the term we use here is just to play. Playing is just to play. See? Well, living is just to live. See? And the practice then is to be. Being to be. And that's getting closer to a more subtle recognition of doing. See? A more subtle participation in doing. See? And it's a little bit closer to doing, but also doing nothing. See? And that's the doing you need to do, is to do nothing. So that, and it doesn't mean you stop. It means you're doing, but you need to know you're doing nothing. You need to know you're driving, but you're not really driving. Right? You seem to be driving something else that's mixed into that perception. And this is true for the rest of the life pattern. We are doing, but we might be overdoing, and we need to pull back so that we're doing and then not doing, to kill ourselves. See? Not to stress ourselves. So we have to do, but then be at a place where there's more relaxed doing, which is what spiritual practice can be about. Yeah. Relaxing the tension, not being so self-conscious, all of these things are part of the undoing, see, of neurosis and the doing, right, of nothing. See. Being the doing of nothing and doing the being of no problems. And getting the job done from no problems. Even if the job is the biggest problem you ever had, there's no problems. It's being there to let it be done and to get it done. See? And it's possible that when we are able to pull ourselves out of the way of what needs to be done, it gets done better. See? Because then we may be allowing different levels of consciousness to come into it if we're not just self-fixated. See? And we are more open and beyond that, more, let's say, receptive to the idea of, let's say, creating from different levels of consciousness. Not just as a self, not just as thought, or just even as a mind. Some things we need to do as a heart, see? And that's what you feel is demanded of you, especially in regards to children. See? Doesn't require all of this, because they're not maybe up to that, or what kinds of emotional stuff doesn't require that. It just requires being there as heart to heart. See? Well, we can do that. We need to be that. See? And it's better to assume that. That's the basis. We need to act as more than not. Already, heart to heart. Not necessarily talk, not necessarily self-image building or self-image destroying. Self-image anything. See, it's heart to heart. We have to consider that. See, and for spiritual practicing people, they understand what heart to heart is in their own way. So give up the fuss, give up the stress, give up the struggle, give up the fight, and be present in the service of whatever is arising in that moment. Good. Mm-hmm. So is liberation something you do? Is something that happens to you? It's a relative liberation? Yeah, we can say that. It's a theory of what? Some kind of freedom. The assumption of freedom, the experience of freedom, the philosophy of freedom, perhaps. The practice of freedom, well, what that means, good theory. Who knows what that means to apply it? When we're talking about spiritual liberation, we're not talking about things particularly, but nothing. Nothing in the way. Can we get to that? Can we incorporate a little bit of no thing in the way in our daily course of experience? So then there's spiritual liberation, liberation of spirit, the clear, manifesting the clear state. Of course, every school has its own song and dance about that, its own dogma, its own tradition, its own teaching, and its own wisdom about that. Can we breathe and be doing in the day as well as in the evening without suffering it? See, do you need to be overwhelming yourself with memories that have nothing to do with your moment? Can you be free to experience your moment? Let's say your moment of now. Could that be a moment of, let's say, created liberation? Where there's nothing. Nothing to fear, nothing to think about, nothing to image, nothing to know, just peace. Is your moment of peace a moment of liberation? Is a good question. And is it conditional peace leading to something else, or is it leading to unconditional peace? Is being free of neuroses liberation? Is that what is meant? Or is it, or being free to experience pain and suffering and peace and happiness all at once? What liberation is about. Everything and nothing all at once. And is anyone ready for the all-at-onceness of such an event? Say a breakthrough, let's say, or a breakdown. You can have a breakdown and wind up on the shores of liberation, all alone, all by yourself, right? All alone as one with the universe. In practice. So we have visionary aspects to basic practice, and everyone is different. You can't really expect to have the same vision of the next person because they in themselves are a different universe, with a different time and space sense, different tone, different karma, different blood, different brain, different heart, different body, different mind, different being. So your moment is unique to you. We can say the individual, but not a self as individual. So we mean your world, your universe, your total, your wholeness. Is manifested from your core, maybe given by spirit, maybe mixed with the celestial beings, influenced by the celestial beings, and maybe other beings, maybe intergalactic beings, perhaps alien beings who are invisible. They don't have to be showing up, as scary, figures. They can be presences of light, and inspiration. And they could be manifestations of liberated intelligence. And you are connected with that in that moment. You are the liberated intelligence for the moment. So to come to terms with neuroses as what you don't need to be, see, could be useful in a higher creative sense. So removed from the neuroses as a crowding of mind and emotional sort of karma, are you making room for more creative intelligence? Are you making more room for higher potential to become more part of your process of living day to day or moment to moment? See? So you can arrive at the feet of the infinite. They're feet, but they're infinite at the same time. So you can arrive at that point where you're confronted with the infinite. Or you're unconscious, or you're superconsciousness, because you are that. It has nothing to do with other people necessarily, yet it may include everybody. It may belong to everybody. See? But we need to know how the infinite is needing to manifest through one's self. See? And so it is wise to, in your practice, make a little spot, a little corner in your meditation space for the presence of the infinite, as well as the presence, right, the more ordinary presence of the finite, right, the self. Yeah, make room for the infinite. And some would call it the bigger picture, or the bigger mind, or the bigger heart. I like to say the heart is the universe is the heart. And coming back from the finite as the infinite, and the infinite as the finite. And since I'm ordinarily, or maybe less than before, but still engaged in music enough to be able to apply that relative to the notes that I play. The expression that I'm most comfortable with is really about the heart is the universe. See? And we are sitting at the feet, right, of the infinite. See? So then it becomes a question of what you play that is important for you, or important as you, or important as it. The infinite. How do you come to terms as a musician with what you know to be the infinite? How do you manifest or express the infinite? How do you express or manifest the infinite in your mothering, let's say, your parenting? Can you do that? Can you be in the space of the infinite while you are taking care of your child? Should you be in the space of the infinite while taking care of your child? Because your child is a symbol of the infinite, see, born to you. And even though it's in a form, it doesn't mean it's not formless. It could be in the form of formlessness, depending on your intelligence. And then, of course, you can expect anything from your child. It's formless, man. It's liable to do anything. And that's true of the music I play, in a sense. It's formless. So most of it is based upon the understanding of the creative as formlessness. Open, free. But lawfully free. Not just random chaos, no. Lawfully free. So heart free, free from the heart. That's important. So keep some of these ideas as you move forward as part of your practice.
Thanks, Baba. So my first introduction to you as a a teacher or an author, I suppose, I was sitting at an empty house, like waiting for a kiln to finish firing. And I picked up the Godfire Symphony.
Very good.
And I opened it to the middle. And I was reading, I was struck by a few passages that you had about women and karma and taking on karma from men. Yeah. And then later you had told me that you had written the book or had taken on the teaching of how it is because your mother
had
asked you.
Great teacher, yeah. Took on a ton and told me about it.
And when I was reading it, I was struck because I thought, why is this the first time I've ever heard anybody write this way or say these things that are so liberating for women? Because these days, most religions aren't doing that, and society's not really doing that. And it made perfect sense to me, and I was wondering, it seems like it should be common sense, but...
Well, it is for some. For those who are true to, let's say, we're going to use the language, the inner self. Some would say it's the true self. And what that means beyond self, then you have to see things for real, clear, and see who's victimized by what that they create or that others create, so that we have a better sense of fairness and justice in this world, which is where we are, and is begging for justice. Everywhere we turn, we see injustice in people, and it's up to us, who are in the process of becoming sage beings, to make a difference in the sense that we have the common sense of wisdom, common sense of enlightenment, kindness, selfless service, which is our norm, actually. It's normal to be selfless, to be like a child, as Jesus said, open, like the children, who knows, who are part of heaven, in a sense, not because they're naive, because they're still in a position to be harmless, and they welcome kindness. And too often culturing and being an ordinary person is about hardening up of the sensitivity to the subtle and the spiritual. Not in all cases, but we need to sometimes be retrained to be as we once were, humble and open and receptive and vulnerable to the forces of spirit and the universe, not ignorantly, but wisely. So we know what to respect, how to respect other people, and how to respect what we were given to master, which is body, mind, self, thought, and world. We have to master that. Bring the inside out to others. Kindness. It's an important word. Maybe not used enough. Who can be so? So we need to ask in our own cases, can we be that kind? Well, that's what we hear from people around us. There's kindness present. There seems to be a kind of a lost practice for many out here today. For spiritual practitioners, that's their common basis. There are a lot of unprotected children in the world, in harm's way. And of course, we want to make sure our own children are kept out of harm's way. And so that the karmas of other people, the conditions that other people have to live and suffer, help us to understand and appreciate our own. And that our protection of our own children and our own goes a long way. It's just less suffering out there for people. Because we're hurt with the hurt of other parents and other children. We hurt with them. And so we need to get back to celebrating what is good to celebrate. And goodness is something to celebrate. Kindness, right? And wisdom is good to celebrate. The practice of heart wisdom. Yeah. Right. We are the protectors and we are the guardians of the unguarded and the unprotected. See? We have to be the strength that they haven't recognized for themselves yet. We have to be strong. We have to be wise. See? So that when we speak from wisdom, we show the light to others, see, who have not gone that far yet. See? It's to be wise enough to turn around and give back to others. See? Who recognize that they have climbed a certain level. Say, okay, there are more coming. Let me prepare this way for those who are coming. And keep them in mind. Others have to walk this walk. Others have to go this way. See, we need to leave tracks for some people. Wisdom, prints here and there for others. See, for their guidance. See, so they do not feel alone or, without support, even though we may be the ones who go before them. See, our influence can be infinite. See.